Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Geek Live. I am really excited about today because I have got an excellent topic to be talking about, which we'll come on to in just 1 second, and also an excellent guest. I'm sure you all already know who she is. She is the grandmother of the Game of Thrones YouTubers, the wonderful, the excellent Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel. Do you want to say hi?
Well, hi. I'm honoured and a teeny bit offended by the grandmother thing, but as a general rule, I'm quite honoured by such a wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me on, Robert. I am so excited to get into this. When I know I'm going to do these things, I write some notes, and I've normally got like 1 or 2 pages of bullet notes. I've written 7 pages of notes just for this. This is going to get controversial. Let's get it.
Excellent. And I didn't mean, I should clarify, I didn't mean grandmother. I meant the one that we all look up to is what I meant, in all good ways. I shall stop digging at this point. Guys, today our topic is Ashara Dayne, who I know that every time I do a topic anywhere around this, then people are always coming up with theories about Ashara Dayne. And the first thing to say about Ashara Dayne, which we will come back to lots, we have to be honest and say we don't know much. We know she's important, and the reason why we know she's important is because she was there right at the heart of both of the really central moments about the backstory to A Song of Ice and Fire. She was there at the Tourney at Harrenhal, and she's also there, if not actually at the Tower of Joy, then the person that Ned went to straight after the Tower of Joy was Ashara Dayne. So we know that she's central, but we have so little information about her. Hardly mentioned at all on the show. As I say, I think only about 11, maybe 12 mentions in total in the books. So Gemma, do you want to start us off just by giving us the high-level 2-minute version? Who is Ashara Dayne, and what's her overall role in this story?
Yeah, I can summarize this really quickly because we've got pretty much nothing about her personally, but as you said, she just keeps cropping up, doesn't she? Kyle is in the chat trolling his Ashara Dayne hate already, by the way. Yeah, basically she's the sister of Sir Arthur Dayne and Illyria Dayne. She's the aunt of Edric Dayne. She's got these haunting violet eyes. She was tall, she was beautiful, lady in waiting to Elia Martell. Now, her story is a different matter. It really depends on who you're speaking to at any given time, and we will get into that. She danced with Ned Stark, among others, at the tourney at Harrenhal after Brandon had spoken to her on poor shy Ned's behalf, and then apparently committed suicide after Ned visited Starfall to return Dawn. According to Barristan Selmy, she had a stillborn daughter. And what else? Again, according to Barristan Selmy, Dany looks like Ashara Dayne. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think that is pretty much it. So she enters the story as one of the ladies in waiting to Elia Martell, who was Rhaegar's wife, obviously, and we first see her at the tourney at Harrenhal. We've had a couple of super chats that I want to come to straight away, although whether I really do Stephen Stark, thank you so much. That's very kind, saying, howdy y'all, and yes, I wrote this so Robert would say it. Cheers. I'm not very good with the American accent, so well, there you have it. In a moment, I might even get to Gemma to try and say howdy y'all as well. Shadow Fox, thank you as well, with £5, saying, love both you guys. You are both my equal first. You've actually, the thing hidden behind a thing here, so I can't see exactly what it says, but I think it says first place YouTubers. Maybe it says second place, who knows. Gemma, could you possibly, just to make Stephen Stark very happy, say howdy y'all?
Do I have to?
Yeah.
Howdy y'all. But I can't do accents. I can't. I can do mine and that's it. Okay. Maybe a wee bit of Scottish, but I'm not doing that.
Excellent. Okay, guys. So let's start off. Thank you, both of you, for those super chats. That was incredibly kind. Can I start off with what I think is an excellent question from one of my patrons, Danny82. Hi, Danny. I don't know whether you're there in the chat. I haven't spotted you. And also, hi, Kyle. By the way, if you I saw you were there, saying, as mainly a show watcher, I'm curious to know about Ashara's role in the story, because she's not so much in the show at all, really. Most people missing from the show that are in the books, if they are key, have some kind of merged storyline. Who could this be in the show? So is there someone you think, Gemma, in the show who has Ashara's storyline in some way merged?
In a word, no. I don't think that storyline has really. I'm trying to think. I can't. I mean, you've kind of dumped this one on me, and offhand, no, I can't think of anybody. It does seem. I mean, we haven't seen Dark Star. We haven't seen. Oh, we've seen Sir Arthur Dayne, obviously, in a flashback. We haven't seen Edric Dayne. We haven't seen Ilaria Dayne. I mean, we had the only time really that Ashara has been properly mentioned is in the animated shorts that HBO do that go on the Blu-ray and the DVD, and that was all in reference to the tourney at Harrenhal, in which instance she actually featured quite heavily, weirdly, considering we've virtually had zero mention of her on the show at all. But no, I can't think of anybody who's specifically picked up her story. I mean, change my mind if you could think of someone.
No, I think I'd agree completely with that. I think that what they've done in this instance is completely cut out the Dayne storyline. So Arthur Dayne is a huge figure in the books, in sort of the backstory and history. He appears in the flashback at the Tower of Joy, but he's not significant. They don't give any sort of backstory to who he is at all. I think Ashara Dayne is exactly the same. She might get the odd mention, but I think they've just cut out that bit of the storyline. In the same way, incidentally, that they've taken out a lot of the significance of Howland Reed in the show. Now, I think that what this means is that they have made a decision, an executive decision as showrunners, that all of that backstory, they want to cut it right down to the bare bones. They don't want to confuse people with all of these extra characters who aren't perhaps central. They might be important, but they aren't central. So I think I would agree, Gemma, very much. I don't think that there is a character who's taken on her story. I think they've just taken this out completely. So I hope that one, Danny, answers that for you. So I don't think you're actually missing out in any way here. I think you're missing out in the sense that there is an excellent bit of backstory and an added level of detail that you're missing out on, but there's nothing that's paralleled within the show. We've had a couple of super chats, actually, some very generous super chats. Thank you so much. Maura Lee, thank you. One of my patrons and a wonderful person with $25. Thank you. Saying, sorry, Kyle, Ashara Dayne is a great character. I have to agree. For those who don't know, Kyle, Azora Hype, for some unexplained reason,
I have no idea.
A bit of a downer about Ashara Dayne. Ashara Dayne, as I hope we will convince you all through this live stream, is a fascinating and fantastic character, and basically Kyle's wrong. But thank you, Maura, for that. That was very kind. And the other super chat from Mary, B1 Mary, thank you again, $25. That is very generous. Thank you. Saying, been waiting for this one. Next one, Daenerys, please. Yeah, maybe we should do a Daenerys one next. We should work that one out later, Gemma. But let's go to another question. And by the way, Gemma, if you spot any great questions in the chat, do just shout.
I am on it.
Excellent news. So the Mary Hadley, another one of my patrons, was talking again when we're talking about the story that we've been given of her at the tourney at Harrenhal or afterwards becoming pregnant, and she loses that child. The child is stillborn, and then Ned turns up, and Ned says, "Oh, I killed your brother," and as a result, she throws herself off of a tall tower. I think there are a lot of problems with that narrative that I'm very happy to talk about in a moment. But do you think that in and of itself was enough for her to actually commit suicide, or is that just a completely made up story?
Heck, well, and I said this earlier, the version of events that we get that surround Ashara Dayne really do depend on who you're talking to at any given time. According to these differing character accounts, and depending on who you believe, Ashara was either in love with Ned, or Ned stole her baby, or she was dishonored by someone at Harrenhal, or she had an affair with a Stark, or she killed herself in grief over a stillborn baby, or she killed herself in grief over losing her love, Ned Stark, or she killed herself in grief over her dead brother, Sir Arthur Dayne. And obviously there's so many contradictions and discrepancies just in that alone. It could be a combination of those. It could be that she's not even dead. I mean, there's just, I mean, this is just so speculative. Anything that we talk about Ashara Dayne, because we've got all these differing accounts and people have got agendas and motives. Like Barristan Selmy says that she was dishonored, but his interpretation of dishonoring could have been something entirely consensual. But the way he framed it, because he was unhappy, because he basically had the hots for Ashara, is that it was a bad thing, but she might not have thought that was the case. Who knows what went on in that tent, eh?
Well, quite. And I think that for me, there are many reasons to doubt the narrative that we've got. And we should say this isn't one narrative. This is lots of different people who've sort of said things. It seems very clear that, yes, she did lose a child, or at least that was the story we were told. But the idea that Ned turned up, said, "Hey, I know that was my child that you just lost, but I just married another woman, and hey, I also killed your brother." The idea that happened, and then the heir to House Dayne was named after Ned, that just does not work for me, because he, for me, would be the last person in that. If that were true, he would be the last person you would name your heir after. So do you agree, Gemma? Do you agree with that the account that we've got doesn't seem to hold with the facts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is the beauty of the mystery. And this is why there is so much speculation that surrounds her, because George R. R. Martin, true to form, has been deliberately vague, hasn't he? He's given us hints and clues here and there, and then he's given us contradictions, so they can't both be true. Which one is it? You know, who do we believe? Whose version of events? We know we've got unreliable narrators in this story. We know that people frame things how they want to view any given situation. And this is why, I mean, I can't remember who said it when we first, before we went live, a couple of people brought up N plus A equals J. And somebody said it's the great debate of our age, isn't it? Which might be a little dramatic, but I mean, I could really go on N plus A equals J, but I'll wait until you say give me the green light on that one, and then I will just have at it and tell everybody exactly where I stand on that. But I think as a general rule, whether you believe in one version or another, or you're just open to the possibilities that are being presented, one thing is for sure, is there's something fishy going on. There's something we don't know. There's something pretty big, major, that we just don't know all the details, and that's the thing. But I do think that we will find out, and I do think it will be quite pivotal and a very big plot point.
Yeah, I agree. And guys, do not worry. At some point within this live stream, I am going to point at Gemma and just say N plus A equals J, go and see what she does. And for those who do not know what N plus A equals J is, this is Ned and Ashara's baby was John. So this is just like the whole Lyanna and Rhaegar having a baby John. That is not right. Actually, it was Ned and Ashara. So many people have strong opinions about this. I have strong opinions about this. I think I know what Gemma's views are on it, but I'm going to get her to hold on that for just one moment, because we had a couple of really interesting super chat questions come through. Nine Nichols, thank you very much. That's very kind. Saying, is Ashara the fisherman's daughter Godric Borrell saw with Ned? Could Ashara Dayne be their daughter? Now, this is a very this is an excellent question because it's very detailed, and so I'll just give the background to this before perhaps pushing it over to Jem for her thoughts on this. So back in the early days of Robert's Rebellion, perhaps even before it officially started, Ned was at the Eyrie. That's where he was being fostered effectively by Jon Arryn, and when he heard that his father had been killed, he obviously needed to go back up to Winterfell. He went to rally the banners, but he couldn't do that the way that you normally go, which is through Gulltown, the major port in the Vale of Arryn. He couldn't do that because they were very strongly in favor of the Targaryen regime. So he actually sort of picked his way across country and found like a fisherman's boat that could take him up to White Harbour. And there is a rumor that I don't know exactly which book it is, but we get Davos when he happens to be going up into that part of the world. He hears, which is that when Ned did this little journey, then he left the fisherman's daughter with a lot of money and also a full belly. Now, that is obviously a rumor.
And we don't mean that he took her to the chip shop, right?
We do not mean that he took her to the chip shop. I don't know quite what the quality of the chip shop are up in White Harbour. Maybe that's one for the traveller's guide. But the question here is there any connection between that little rumour or incident of what happened when Ned was on his way from the Eyrie up to Winterfell with that fisherman and the fisherman's daughter? Is there any connection between that rumor and Ashara Dayne and Ashara Dayne?
For me, they're kind of two separate questions, because the first part of that question is the fisherman's daughter Ashara doesn't necessarily have to be true for Ellaria to be Ashara's daughter, or vice versa. I've actually got the quote that you were summarizing there. I've got it written down here, so I'll just quickly read it out. Godric Borrell tells Davos, and this is word for word, at the dawn of Robert's Rebellion, the Mad King had sent to the Eyrie for Stark's head, but Jon Arryn sent him back defiance. Gulltown stayed loyal to the throne, though. To get home and call his banners, Stark had to cross the mountains to the Fingers and find a fisherman to carry him across the Bight. A storm caught them on their way. The fisherman drowned, but his daughter got Stark to the sisters before the boat went down. Got Stark to the sister. That's an interesting line, isn't it? We'll come back to that later. They say he left her with a bag of silver and a bastard in her belly. Jon Snow, she named him, after Arryn. Okay, so I do think there is a possibility that Ellaria could be Ashara's daughter, but like I said, these are two kind of potentially separate issues. Now, I was looking into this now. Fisherman's daughter, that reminds you of, what's that phrase? It's a fish and it's red and it's a herring, isn't it? So I don't know. it could have been that he was smuggling Ashara with him while he did this journey, and she was posing as a fisherman's daughter. Although you'd think they'd have noticed this absolutely drop dead gorgeous, literally the hottest woman in Westeros with her haunting violet eyes, and nobody seems to mention that. No, she was just a fisherman's daughter. But this means that at some point before Ned went to Winterfell to call the banners, that Ashara would have had to have gone back to Starfall alone and pregnant. And the fact that she's got a bastard in her belly would indicate that she was noticeably pregnant at that point, in which case Ned would have known she was pregnant. So in this scenario, Ned, knowing Ashara is about to give birth to his child, marries Cat and conceives Robb, and that would mean that Jon is older than he's being presented as, because the general premise is that Robb is slightly older than Jon. But in A Game of Thrones, Ned says that he dishonored himself and Catelyn by fathering a bastard, presenting this cover story as him conceiving Jon while he was married to Cat, not before. So there's just too many holes. There's too many contradictions. It doesn't. It might have been, but I can't tie all of these pieces together at this point. I have looked into this and not quite gelling for me. Maybe I'm missing something. Would you agree?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think that this is indeed a red herring. I think that this is just another story connected to where on earth did Ned Stark get a bastard son from? I think this really confuses people, and there are a lot of different stories. And you see, actually, when Cersei mentions Ashara Dayne, she's in the middle of just throwing a whole series of names at him, almost like kind of trying to goad him into telling her who it was. Even after all these years, she's curious. Who was it who you actually had an affair with and had a child with? Just, it doesn't quite make sense. And I think that the thing I always come back to is the fact that people don't get the idea that Ned Stark had a bastard child. They just don't. It doesn't work for them. He doesn't seem the type. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't the type, but he doesn't seem the type to do that. And so the idea that he might have been just like on a boat trip and then made somebody pregnant, you know. So that doesn't seem to work for me about his character. The one word we have about Ned at that time as a description of his character is shy. That's the only word we have about him. We don't know anything else about what he was like at that time other than the fact that he was shy. And that doesn't seem to work for me, the idea that he went on this boat trip, which was probably like a week or so, maybe, I don't know, and that in that time he suddenly magically managed to get a bastard child, and then learned about it presumably much later because he was in a rush to get north, learned about it much later, and then picked up this child on the way back up. No, it doesn't seem to work for me. That's not right. And I think, Gemma, you are very right in trying to draw the line there between whether that has got some connection with Ashara and whether Illyria Dayne, who ostensibly is the sister, is actually the daughter. Now, there is quite a big age gap going on there. I think that's possible, but my guess is probably not. I think that's one of those things that we're just reading a lot into for no particular reason. Let's face it, that House Dayne at that time, if you're just being Mama and Dada Dayne, you suddenly see Arthur has gone, Ashara has gone, regardless of whether she actually did commit suicide or disappeared somewhere, she's gone. You're actually suddenly low on Danes. You need to make another Dane. So that for me, there's no particular reason why we have to assume that is actually Ashara's daughter. But Nine Nichols, thank you. That was a really interesting question.
Can I just add to that? Speaking of Mama and Dada Dayne, this is another mystery of House Dayne, isn't it? Even their family tree is conspicuously sparse. Most of you are aware that I'm such a massive nerd that I spent 3 solid weeks of my life creating the Song of Ice and Fire family tree that many of you have now had invites to view as well, which is exciting. But there's nothing. We've got Arthur, who we don't even know what color hair he had. We don't know what color eyes he had. We've got Ashara, Alaria, and they're said to have a brother who is Edric's father. We don't even know this person's name. There's no name for their parents, neither of them. And beyond that, there's no grandparents, there's nothing. There is even no confirmed indication of exactly how they're related to Dark Star, and that's a whole other theory in itself. So I couldn't, when I created this family tree, I started with Aegon, obviously, the Conqueror. So I couldn't connect any of the Danes in the story as we know it now to any of the other characters because there was just no familial links that I could use that were canon. The only Dane on my family tree is Diana Dane, who married King Maekar, who was Egg's mother. So, like, literally the 2 Danes that we're familiar with are also shrouded in mystery. Arthur, who's like this perfect knight who almost feels out of place in the story, and then Ashara, who's apparently the hottest woman that ever walked the planet. I mean, this whole thing, it almost doesn't feel like it fits in this story, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit odd, and as a complete aside on this, George R.R. Martin has actually confirmed that. So the purple eyes that she has, yes, that's a Dane thing, but that does not mean that they're linked to the Targaryens. That's a complete. He says that's just an accident. These things happen. Sometimes you get 2 completely different families that look quite similar, and that's not actually a family link going on there. But yeah, I think with Ashara, we always have to be quite wary about what it is people say about her. So we have Barristan Selmy was clearly obsessed with her, and he clearly described her as being very beautiful. Someone else who thinks about her is Kat, who is, when she thinks about her, quite jealous because she's actually trying to find out who is it who stole my husband away while he was off at war. So she imagines this incredibly beautiful woman. And then we just have Howland Reed, who just remembers the colour of her eyes, who, as most people I'm sure watching know, I think probably was also in love with her. So we're actually getting 3 different views of her from 3 people who've got quite strong emotive reactions to her. So whether she actually was this famed beauty or whether it's just that these are people who have natural reactions to her, I don't know. We always have to come back to the fact that George R.R. Martin writes from points of view. He doesn't write from this kind of like godlike third-party narrator. He writes from specific people's perspectives. Barristan Selmy thought she was hot because Barristan Selmy was in love with her. Kat probably never even met her, but has this idea in her mind of her being this extraordinarily beautiful woman, and so on. So that, for me, that is what we always have to bear in mind, is this idea that the characters are shown, particularly someone like Ashara Dayne, who we never actually meet, they are shown through the eyes of others, not in some kind of objective fashion. But just very quickly, Higa Herga, which is a fantastic name. I always stumble over that one, but thank you so much for the super chat, saying, I saw your Ashara Howland video. I'll buy what you're selling. Here it is. And thank you very much, $5. That's very kind. So let's, before we take a sort of a break and move on to the second half of this, where I want to start thinking about theories of where she might be now, is she still alive, those kinds of theories. And yes, I will give you the chance to have your say on N+A=J. But what do you think happened, as best as we can understand it? This is perhaps a slightly unfair question, but at Harrenhal or afterwards, what are the bits that you feel confident talking about? Please don't say nothing because we don't know anything. What do you feel most confident that we can actually say about her and her movements and what was actually going on with her while she was alive?
Well, that's a terrible question. That's a horrible question. Like I said earlier on, George R. R. Martin has deliberately made this vague. Her entire story is filled with holes and contradictions. I can't confidently claim I know anything about any of this. What I can confidently say is that we don't know who she had a romance with. We don't know who she got pregnant to. We don't know if she had a girl or a boy. We don't know if her child's dead or alive. And we don't even know if she's alive or not. That's what I can confidently say. I'm open to theories. I know what I believe. I've been right about things before. I've been wrong about things before. I enjoy speculating because, I mean, and this does seem to veer between, you know, fairly plausible ideas to just, and fairly compelling evidence, and then to complete and utter wild speculation and everything in between. This is why she's such a fun character, because there's just so much scope for discussion, isn't there?
Yeah, that absolutely is. So that was an unfair question. I apologize. What I think we know, or if we don't know, then I think we can be reasonably certain about, was that she was one of the ladies in waiting to Elia Martell. She went to the tourney at Harrenhal. She danced with 4 people that we know of. 3 of them, I think, were pretty uncontroversial. The 4th was Ned. So the first 3 being either her brother or Barristan Selmy, depending on how you interpret the language, which again both would have been pretty uncontroversial. The second was Oberyn Martell, which was her lady's brother, and the third was John Connington, who was one of the best friends of Rhaegar. So pretty uncontroversial, all on the sort of the Rhaegar team. And then we get Ned. My view is that, looking at what Rickard Stark, Ned's father, was trying to do, and the fact that Brandon seems to be brokering something going on there, my view is that that was an attempt to set up Ned with Ashara for a political marriage. Remember, he was the second son, so he probably wouldn't be able to marry any of the sort of the heirs to the big families, but an ancient family in one of the southern areas that at that time the Grand Alliance hadn't got links to, and at the time the Dayne family were one of the most influential and central families. That would have been a very good match for Ned, and I think that was going on there. That was a political match. So we know for sure that she was there. There seems to have been some sort of scandal, looking between the lines of what the rumors were. She was seen perhaps in Ned's tent. Remember, Howland was also sharing Ned's tent, so I think perhaps that was what was going on there rather than with Ned. But anyway, the rumor got out that her and Ned somehow got together and that she had his child, but it was a stillborn child. So I think that for that rumor to have happened, she clearly went back to King's Landing after the tourney at Harrenhal. She would have become obviously pregnant at King's Landing, at which point there would have been a scandal because she was not married. At which point the other intriguing phrase, and perhaps in a moment I'll come to you, Gemma, on this, because I think it is a really intriguing phrase. She, in Barristan Selmy's words, looked to Stark. Now, I think this means that when she was in some sort of trouble, perhaps because she was unmarried and pregnant in court, she then looked to Stark to help her. But I would be intrigued, before I go on with my version of what I think we know, what do you think that when Barristan Selmy said that she looked to Stark, what do you think he might have meant by that?
Again, and I've just been called out in the chat. I can't remember who said it again. The chat's flying at the moment, but somebody said, well, that narrows it down, Gemma. Sorry. I think that meant that Barristan saw her sneaking into a Stark tent. But that doesn't necessarily, I'm open to suggestions. Looked to Stark. I mean, how vague. I mean, come on, George R.R. Martin. Which Stark? Looked for what? I mean, that could just be interpreted in a million different ways. I mean, was it Brandon Stark? Was it Ned Stark? Was it Benjen Stark? He's probably about 13 at the time, but regardless. But and like you said, did she look for solace, companionship, a bit of hanky panky? I don't know. I think that Barristan saw her sneaking into the Stark tent, if you want a definite opinion from me.
I always want a definite opinion from you, and I put a great weight on your definite opinions. I think I would agree with that. The Stark, I'm not saying this is what I believe, but I was intrigued that you missed one Stark off of your list, Lyanna. Now, Lyanna quite possibly stayed in the south after the Tourney of Harrenhal. We don't know exactly where, but we know that obviously at some point later she was in the south. And so I do wonder whether she turned to Lyanna, who she knew was the person who had a history of keeping an eye out for Howland. So in my mind, and I know this is pushing things quite a long way along my... I still don't think it's tinfoil theory. I think it's speculative theory about Howland and Ashara. But if she were pregnant with Howland's child, who would she look to for support? The one person or the people she would look to are the only people in the entire kingdom who actually thought that the Crannogmen were worthwhile, who were the Starks.
Yeah.
Now, I think that so Lyanna protected them. We saw Ned valued the Crannogmen later. I think there's a fair chance that Brandon probably would have stood up for him as one of his bannermen as well. So if you were Ashara, if you were pregnant with a Crannogman's child, who would you look to? Not only to try and persuade your family that this was a good person to be the father of your child, but also as support, perhaps a Stark. So that's how, for me, that's how that fits in. I'm not saying that's necessarily the truth, but that kind of works for me. Gemma is laughing at something. What's going on, Gemma?
The chat is just getting out of hand now. We've got theories about menage a trois with Howland and Lyanna, and this is, I mean, it's hilarious to see there's some very, somebody said Ashara Dayne is old nan confirmed. There's loads of, but actually, even when you're not just being complete trolls and giving us something that's fairly tangible, the chat are so divided on this. Everybody's got an opinion, and every single one is slightly different. There's so many versions of the theories that surround Ashara Dayne. There's so much, and just seeing what you guys are all coming up with in the chat. I mean, I must have seen about 20 theories in the chat alone in the last 20 minutes that I've never heard of before. I know some of them are heavily trolly. But yeah, there's been a few comments about your Howland tinfoil there. Robert gave me the outline. I've not seen Robert's video yet. Sorry, but I will. So you kind of gave me like the Cliff Notes version briefly before we went online about this Howland thing. And my conclusion was, I don't hate it. I really don't hate this theory. I'm not 100% cracking out my checkbook at this point, but I kind of like it. And that's where I am at the minute. I'll watch your video and then I'll come back to you on that. But I like it. I like it a lot, actually. And it's a new one for me. Well, I was vaguely aware, but I'm not going to lie. I'd heard the theory, it summarized in a sentence or two, and instantly dismissed it and moved on to the next thing. This was a while back. So it would be interesting to see this a little bit more fleshed out.
Excellent. Well, I am going to win over the entire community with this theory. This is my dream. So for me, if I can summarize, and I saw there's, I've got a couple of super chats I'm going to come to in just 1 second, but with it, if I could summarize all of that bit, while she was alive, things are not as we have been told. We know this. The rumors about Ned and Ashara are clearly there. Ned clearly tried to shut them down, but I don't think that the rumors are real. However, someone has to have been on the scene in some way, because clearly lots of people believed that Ashara had a baby. So we have to work out who that someone was. Now, you could say maybe Ned. I don't think it was. We don't seem to have any evidence that it was. Brandon, well, yes, that's simply because we know that he got around, let's say.
And that's only according to Lady Dustin, who was pretty salty about the whole situation, let's face it.
Exactly. So the idea that it was Brandon is based purely on what Lady Dustin was saying, which I would agree we shouldn't place huge amounts of weight on. And who else was there? That for me, the main candidate is Howland, and the only reason why we don't think it is because we buy into this idea that everybody seems to be having, is that he was a Crannog man, a mud man. Why would anyone go with this guy? And I think it is very like George R.R. Martin to try and turn that idea on the head, because it is rammed down so many times how much people looked down on them. But anyway, be that as it is may, we have to find the father for Ashara's child. I do not think it's Ned. I do think that the most likely candidate is Howland. But I want to get to these super chats because we've got some generous people out there. Jay DeFio says Ashara is either dead with no living children, the mother of Danny with a few daddy options, or the mother of Mira. Not enough information to really pinpoint things down. Yeah, I think you have summarized what our problem here is, that there are lots of options. I think I've come to a conclusion about what I think is the most likely option, but there are, as you say, quite a few other ones going on out there. I think I saw another super chat somewhere. Maybe I just dreamt that one up. Guys, if I've completely missed the super chat, then I'm very sorry.
Do you want me to address the baby daddy issue while you have a look for it?
Go for it.
For me, well, for everybody, the biggest problem figuring out Ashara's baby daddy problem is the timelines are just awful. They are so complicated and vague. I mean, we've just got a date as in a year. We don't really have months. Any applying months, because the seasons are all over the place, so we can't even use those as a guide. So we literally have a full year. It could have been at the beginning of the year, it could have been right at the end of the year. Ashara couldn't have been pregnant from Harrenhal. Well, she could have, but the child would have been, if the child had lived that she'd got pregnant with at Harrenhal, that child would have been 17 at the start of the story. Now, if there was like a baby swap, they would have had to have been very, very closely done together. So that would have mean either Ned or Brandon or whoever did the swap would have to have been close enough to Ashara to do the deed and then to perform the baby swap. If Ned and Ashara were meeting each other in secret after the tourney, I mean, all we get from George R. R. Martin on this was this an exasperated jab that he said that Ashara Dayne wasn't bolted to the floor at Starfall in an interview when she was asked. For me, when it comes to Dany, Jon, Illyria, Mira, even Aegon, which is a whole other complicated Septilemore thing, the only way that the timelines could possibly work is if the children in question are just not the ages that they're being presented as, because it's been lied about to cover tracks. Does that make sense, or am I just waffling?
It does make sense, and we talked about this very briefly before we went on air. I think that there are a number of ways out of this. Either Ashara didn't get pregnant at the tourney at Harrenhal, she got pregnant later, and that's how that baby came in, or she had her stillborn baby as a result of whatever happened at Harrenhal, and then she got pregnant again quite quickly. That could have happened. The one thing I would point out, which I'm also currently going through my next video, incidentally, in my series about what I think really happened at Harrenhal, Robert's Rebellion, Tourney at Tower of Joy, was my next one is going to be about what happened during Robert's Rebellion. And one thing which struck me, which I think a lot of people don't quite appreciate or haven't clocked, I think is probably a better way of saying it, is that after the tourney at Harrenhal, suddenly it went to winter again. It got ice, snow, all the way down to King's Landing. It was horrible weather. And what that meant was that Ned, who went up to the Eyrie, he would have just got through the mountains and got up to the Eyrie when it got to be winter, at which point winter sort of struck and the pass suddenly became impassable. You cannot then go back out through the mountains during winter. That meant that he was stranded in the Eyrie for that time. Ashara Dayne, as lady-in-waiting to Elia Martell, would have gone to King's Landing. So they would have been separated for at least 6 months.
She could have been at Dragonstone. That still wouldn't have made it any easier for them to get together. But Aegon was born shortly after the tourney, and he was born at Dragonstone. So, but again, that's still not solving the problem, is it? Being a hop, skip, and a jump closer is not making the difference, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So she probably went to Dragon. I think you're right. Thank you. She probably went to Dragonstone with Elia, and then later, when Elia went down to King's Landing, the implication is that she went with her, because George R. R. Martin specifically says she was lady-in-waiting to Elia Martell at King's Landing. So, but the point for me stands that Ned was snowed in at the Eyrie while Elia was hundreds of miles away. So I think that there's a big gap going on there. I want to take a quick pause in just 1 second, but I found the other super chat, which was Jay DeFio. Again, thank you so much. $10. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Saying, he would have killed me. This is a quote. He would have killed me if not for Howland Reed. It doesn't say how Howland killed Arthur. So what could Howland have done to stop Arthur? Now, I think this is a really important point, and I feel that in every single live stream I spoil one of my future videos. The spoiler I'm going to do here is I think that what we saw in the Game of Thrones last season with the flashback with Howland stabbing Arthur in the back, I don't think that happened in the books. I think that George R. R. Martin uses very precise language when he's talking about what happened at the Tower of Joy in order to try and say exactly or be clear without explicitly telling us much. Now, I think he doesn't say, and Arthur Dayne died in battle. He said that Ned talks about him and his companions coming, and there were the 3 other people, and only 2 walked away alive, him and Howland. That doesn't mean that all the rest died in battle. I think that something else happened. Now, if you take my theory that Howland and Ashara were an item, perhaps in love. I think that later on in this series, I think that actually the two of them go off. We'll come to this in the second half of this live stream. The two of them go off up to Greywater Watch. Then you suddenly get the fact that Howland is Arthur Dayne's effective brother-in-law. I think that there is a very good chance that he could have stopped that battle without killing Arthur Dayne by saying something the equivalent of "we surrender" when it's just him and Ned against Arthur Dayne.
Or something like, "That's his sister up there. Why are we all fighting, guys?"
Exactly. I think there are a million and one ways where, with three people standing, and the bit I will leave from my videos, what I think happened with Arthur Dayne, but with three people standing, Arthur Dayne, the finest swordsman the land has ever known, plus Ned and Howland, who, let's face it, is not a great swordsman. At that point, Ned and Howland will probably have realized that they are probably going to die, and I think Howland stopped the fight. That is my theory. He could have done that by saying, as you say, "Hey, there's your sister. We're in love. Let's not do this," or whatever. I think that there was something that happened that was not Howland stabbing Arthur in the back. I think that was a show shortcut to take out all of this House Dayne story that was just a little bit too complicated for the show. I'll have a quick reaction from you on that, Gemma, and then we'll take a quick pause before going on to the second half, where we start to get quite speculative about where she might be now.
Again, I'm really liking where you're going with this. I'm not cracking out my checkbook, but I am intrigued, because this would kind of potentially remove one of the big questions, and it's, how did Ned know to go to the Tower of Joy in the first place? We don't know anything about Ashara's movements, but we sure know Ned's movements during Robert's rebellion. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we'll get to the point where he went to King's Landing after all, blah 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 blah. King's Landing, sack of King's Landing. From there, he went to Storm's End to lift the siege from Mace Tyrell. And then from there, he went straight to Dawn to the Tower of Joy. Now, I believe that he found out where Lyanna was at Storm's End, because I believe that he would have gone to Lyanna as soon as he had that information. But the question is, who told him that that's where she was? And a lot of people think that Ashara Dayne told him. But if she did, she gave up her brother. Which is like, would she do that? You know, we don't know. We don't know what kind of person she was. We don't know what kind of relationship Arthur and Ashara had. We don't know what kind of relationship Ned and Ashara had. But that's pretty tragic, isn't it? If the idea is that she told the man that she loved how to find his sister, knowing that she was sacrificing potentially either the life of her brother or the man she loved by pitting them against each other by giving him this information. But your version pretty much eliminates all of that, really, doesn't it?
It does. And so this is my theory, is that, and I'll come onto this in a couple of videos time in my series, is that the moment you say that Howland and Ashara are in love or in contact, that immediately creates the link that you need between Ned, Howland was with Ned, and the Tower of Joy, because Ashara presumably knew where her brother Arthur was. So actually all you get is Howland suddenly saying, okay, now we need to go to the Tower of Joy because that's where Lyanna is. So that's the link for me. We get this whole, how on earth did Ned suddenly find the Tower of Joy? He didn't just wander around aimlessly until he found it. He knew where he was going. The people who knew where it was were the people who were there, and probably because they would have needed to find somebody to help with the birth. Let's face it, the best place for them to go would have been to go and get somebody from Starfall, because Arthur Dayne was there. Arthur Dayne was Rhaegar's best friend. He would have trusted him completely. Arthur would clearly have trusted Ashara, his sister, completely. She would have known about where it was. And so you get the link between Ashara and Howland, and that, I think, is how Ned knew where to go. Now, that for me ties in this whole kind of arc, and so that is why it's important that it is you get Howland and Ashara getting together at Harrenhal, because that then creates the link all the way down to the Tower of Joy, and those are the 2 points at which we get Ashara being central. And yes, it's Ashara being central, but the link, as in so much in that period, is Howland, because Howland is there being the person on the ground for the Weirwood network, I would personally argue. But let's just take a quick pause, because there are a couple of things I want to say. I always take a moment in the middle of my live streams just to say a few things to my patrons and to my subscribers. The first, I just wanted to say I've been in contact with a convention which is actually happening, a con which is happening in Dublin this weekend. I'm not being paid to say this, it's just I like to encourage things that are going on out there in the community. The Iron Throne Legends, I think, Gemma, you're aware of this one as well.
I am, yeah, I am. They kindly donated some tickets for me to give away on my channel, which was awesome. So one of my subscribers is presently packing her things and she's on her way, which is amazing. But carry on.
Well, that's fantastic. So if you do happen to be Ireland or UK based and want to see, I think they've got a lot of great stuff there. They've definitely got a couple of the actors and I think a couple of the direwolves there as well, and some of the swords, and they've got some fantastic stuff going on there. So as I say, this is not me being sponsored in any way to say this. I just like to let people know stuff which is going on, which I think they might like. So please do check that out. It is called hang on a moment, what's it called? Iron Throne Legends, it's called. So do go and have a quick Google of that one, or perhaps one of the admins can have put the link down there in the chat somewhere. That said, stuff for my patrons. Patrons, thank you. I say this every time. I honestly can't do this without you. And I just, over the last couple of days, hit my target for my patrons, which is absolutely fantastic. I honestly can't express how happy I am about that. That means that I can devote a lot more of my time to creating videos like this and to putting my effort into doing in Deep Geek, and also my second channel, which for those who don't know is called The Well Told Tale. And I should just say the other thing I wanted to say, as well as to just plug my Patreon, if you are interested in supporting this channel, please do check out my Patreon page. That's where you can either just support the channel and help me, or if you want to get access to more exclusive stuff that I produce just for my patrons, please do check out my Patreon page. But my second channel is The Well Told Tale. That is just me reading audiobooks, reading what I consider to be the best science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction stories ever written. We are almost all of the way through the War of the Worlds. This is the first story I've been reading. We've got one more episode to go. So if you've been holding off on that one, now is the time to start listening to that. We've gone all the way through that. And then next week, we're going to start on Frankenstein. And then we're just going to move all the way through the classics.
I love Frankenstein so much.
Time we're going to go into H.P. Lovecraft. We're going to do Dracula. We're going to get every single kind of classic that I can think of. Which I'm just going to be reading them every Wednesday, long form, about 3/4 of an hour per episode, just me narrating the story. I'm committed. There's going to be no adverts in the middle of any episode, so it's just going to be me reading them. So if that appeals to you, please do check out The Well Told Tale. Gemma, what's going on with you?
What's going on with me? Oh heck, I'm doing a lot of collaborations at the moment, actually, and I'm sure you understand what I mean. I've reached a point where I love writing. I love the writing part of all of this. I'm not such a massive fan on the editing, so I've reached a point where I've got about 6 scripts, and I'm like, oh, I really need to edit these, because without the editing, I can't actually get a video up. So I've got loads of scripts just sat there waiting to be edited. I'm doing a live stream tomorrow on my channel, talking about the etymology of character names. On Saturday, I'm doing a recording with Grey Area, talking about Jack and Hagar. I'm working out something with you and Phil the Issues Guy and Lucifer Means Lightbringer. We're going to talk about motifs and symbolism and all sorts of good stuff. Tomorrow morning, I'm recording a podcast to my second channel, Too Wordy, where we're going to be talking about how to write sex scenes and kissing scenes. So that should be utterly hilarious. That's about it. Can I please go for N plus L A equals J now? Please let me.
Okay, I've held off for too long, guys. I do before I say go. If you have never experienced Secrets of the Citadel, you've seen her now. She is wonderful. She really knows her stuff. She's got an exceptionally good channel, and I only invite people on here who I think have got things that you would like. Please do go and check out her channel. There is a link down in the description. I'm sure one of my wonderful mods is going to put a link down there in the chat as well. She does not only theory videos and the rest, but what I think is, if not unique, then certainly the best at what she does, chapter by chapter breakdowns of A Song of Ice and Fire. I think you're partway through A Clash of Kings now.
I am.
I would highly recommend you go if you're serious about reading the books and understanding the detail of what is going on there. And George R. R. Martin has so much detail in so many different lines in there. Then I would highly recommend you go and check out Secrets of the Citadel. So plug over. Gemma's great. Gemma's great. Go and check out her channel. But now is your moment. So the theory is N plus A equals J. A lot of people have said that Ned and Ashara had a baby, and the baby was Jon Snow. So everything we've learned and everything we've guessed is actually not true. Actually, Ned and Ashara's baby is Jon. Do you agree? If not, why not? Go.
No, I don't agree. But having said that, like, is this not what we do? We speculate, we theorize. I don't understand. What I don't understand is why everybody takes this so personally. Like, guys, just have an open mind. I don't believe that N plus A equals J. I believe R plus L equals J. But I might be wrong. I don't know. We don't know. The books aren't finished yet, or they're certainly not released. But this is where I'm at with N plus A equals J. It doesn't even come off the tongue, does it, as well as R plus L equals J. There's just so many questions that we cannot answer. Not that we necessarily that don't fit, that we just can't answer because we just don't know. For starters, why, if Jon was the son of Ned and Ashara, why did Ned do any of it? Why wouldn't he have left Jon at Starfall? Why the secrecy in the first place? Why the need to hide any of this? Why not just explain? I'm sorry about that. Kind of conceived a kid before we got married, Cat. My bad. Why would he even marry Cat at all? He's an honourable guy, Ashara Dayne comes from I know it was politics and war and stuff, but maybe he already married Ashara and his marriage to Cat had always been void. I don't think so. But if Jon was born to Ashara at either Starfall, or let's say Ashara was in the Tower of Joy and not Lyanna, just for argument's sake, why were the Kingsguard there if that was not the king? Okay, why did Dany see a blue rose growing through a chink of ice in the wall? I mean, come on, people. It's not so much a case of I don't believe N plus A equals J. It's just that R plus L equals J is so compelling. Like, surely Ned, in his final moments in those black cells, mulling over his life, would have reflected somewhat on the love of his life, the mother of his child, perhaps a passing consideration. But no, like literally nothing. He thought of his sister, he thought of Kat, he thought of Howland Reed. He didn't think about Ashara, certainly not directly. It was all about Lyanna and the promise that was made. I think Ashara is the lie. I think Ashara is the lie that Ned relied on to cover the story. The Ned and Ashara story, it's just filled with too many holes and contradictions. And I think it's quite clear that this has been done on purpose. And scene.
well. So I would agree with all of that. For me, the R+L = J. Here in the community of Game of Thrones nerds, we have lived with this thought that Rhaegar and Lyanna had a child called Jon for so long. It's now got to the point where we're doubting it. This we have to remember that this is written. The idea was brought up by George R.R. Martin and thought up a couple of decades ago. He probably thought, "Hey, here's a clever thought. Maybe there's a secret child hidden away." He wouldn't have done this double bluff. We are the people overthinking this. Is my view.
Yes.
And in a slightly more thematic way, I would say that the whole idea of the Song of Ice and Fire is that we have Jon, who is this central point, the pivot. I'm not saying he's the huge hero. I know there are some people who hold him up as being this wonderful the golden child here who's going to save everyone. I don't think that's what it is, but I think that he is the central person of this Song of Ice and Fire, with the Lyanna being the ice and Rhaegar being the fire. I think that is where he comes in, and that is the secret which is to be revealed in the last 2 books. So thematically, it works for me. N+A = J might logistically be possible. I could see that it's, yes, you could do that, but it just doesn't seem right, and it doesn't work for me on a number of different levels. I'm not going to add too much to what Gemma said.
Can I just add something else to what I said, though?
Of course.
I understand. And the main, and what people are saying is, well, it's confirmed in the show, right? And I understand the show and the books have many differences. But if you've been following Kyle's adventures across America, Kyle and Aziz and Ashara from History of Westeros literally met George R.R. Martin a couple of weeks ago, and he confirmed that the show and the book might not be as separate as people are assuming at this point. It was the Jon Snow mother question that D&D answered correctly that got them the gig Game of Thrones in the first place. Now, if they got this correct question right in their initial talks with George, then why would they suddenly change their minds on such a pivotal plot point? I just don't think they would. I just want to give a quick shout out to Grey Area. She has released a video, it was a while ago now, where she basically just destroys N+A = J, and I highly recommend that. If you're not 100% convinced, go and watch that. She's perhaps a little more forceful than even I have just been.
Gotta love a little bit of Grey Area. Okay, we've got some super chats. Let's pick up the pace a little bit because we've got a few to get through. Jason Weeks, thank you so much, Jason Weeks. I always have to do your full name. Jason Weeks, Warden of the North, love it. Patron of both. Hi, saying Barristan Selmy admitted to Ashara being dishonored. Could it have been him? And how many close-age children do we have? John, Danny, Sam, Mira, Aegon, Rob, any more? Yeah, that I think you've got the full list there. There's a lot of children all born around the same sort of time, which does slightly confuse things. But hey, war does these things to people. So Barristan Selmy admits that Ashara being dishonored. Could it have been him? I don't think so, because he was thinking after her being dishonored, who would she have looked to, and he wondered whether it could have been him. And I think that if it had been him, he would have been so racked with guilt, he would never have thought it was him. So what do you think on that one, Gemma?
Exactly what you've just said, literally word for word. I couldn't say it better. Hi, Lucifer means Lightbringer in the chat, by the way.
Excellent. We've got another super chat from, hang on, need the glasses. The Quiet Wolf, thank you so much. Saying, I think a good clue that H plus A equals M, this is Howland and Ashara, is that out of all the characters that could have told the Night of the Laughing Tree story, George R.R. Martin chose Mira. I think I would agree. I think that the fact that this story that we are told that the central characters appear to be Howland and Ashara, the fact that this was the story that Howland appears to have told his kids implies that this wasn't just Howland perving after the attractive lady in waiting, that there was actually something else going on there.
It did come across a bit creepy, didn't it? The way that it even states very specifically that he was keeping a careful watch on the maid. It's like, what? That's just like restraining order.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the only way, and I always come back to the fact, this is the story he told his kids.
Exactly.
The way you would admit that.
That time I stalked that hot chick.
Exactly. If that happened to turn out to be, you would not say to your children, oh yeah, so before I met your mum, there was this really girl I met at this dance once. In fact, I didn't even meet her. I just gazed at her from afar. You'd never, she was amazing. That does not work for me. He told this story multiple times to his children, to the extent that they were shocked that Bran did not know this story. So I said it in my video, it smacks to me of a How I Met Your Mother story. That is what it seems to be. Otherwise, why on earth is he admitting to his children that he was perving over some woman? It just seems right. And we have to say that the other, taken from a purely pragmatic perspective, Howland had to have met someone in that period. We've all been talking about Ashara. Howland had to have met someone in that period in order to have Mira.
Yeah.
Because if we accept that Mira is his child, then during that lead up to the rebellion and the early months of the rebellion, he met someone who became his wife, apparently, who bore a child called Mira. And who do we know that he met during that period? Actually, not many people, but one of the people that he seems to have taken a shine to, the only person we're aware that he took a shine to, was Ashara Dayne. None of this is incontrovertible evidence, but for me, it just adds up to be where he had to have met a wife somewhere. Perhaps that's where.
We've got so many theories to still cover, and it's getting very late here in England, so we might have to whiz through these pretty quick because it is past my bedtime, I'm afraid, guys.
Okay, guys, I never would wish to keep Gemma up beyond her bedtime. So, guys, we've got, I reckon, 10 more minutes. I've got one more super chat and a few questions from my patrons to quickly go through. But if you've got any other questions, then now is your time to drop them into the chat. Daniel Marston, thank you. We answered one of your questions from patron earlier. Just saying thanks for answering the question. Thanks for an awesome stream. You are very welcome indeed. Let's just quickly do a couple of questions from my patrons. This is a popular theory. John St. Baptiste, who has gotten, I don't know whether he's out there in the chat, an excellent channel himself. If you love music, please do check out John St. Baptiste's channel. Is Ashara still alive as Scepter Lemore? I know you will have thoughts on this one. What do you think, Gemma?
It's entirely possible. Some people say she's Quaithe, and some people say she is Scepter Lemore on the Shy Maid. I think if she is either, it's more likely to be Scepter Lemore. Tyrion saw the stretch marks, so we know Scepter Lemore did have a child, which is a bit dodgy for a scepter. The thing is, John Connington would have to be in on this because John Connington knew Ashara Dayne. He danced with her. That's specifically mentioned. He danced with her at Harrenhal. So John Con would have to be in on this conspiracy if that was the case. This could potentially make her secretly Aegon's mother, and potentially Ned could be Aegon's father. And it just gets very, very complicated from that point onwards. The only thing that really puts a big spanner in this theory is the fact that Tyrion never mentions Ashara's Septa Lemor's eyes, which, as we know, Ashara's were very noteworthy. I'm not sure if Tyrion was looking at her eyes at that particular moment, though, to be quite honest. So who knows? It's possible.
Yeah, I would agree. It is possible. I like my theory better, but I think for it to be possible, we have to accept that that is a plot which has come up with Varys and with Illyrio, and that means that we have to accept that Ashara Dayne, who is clearly very much involved with Ned and Howland and Arthur Dayne and Rhaegar and all of what was going on there, that is tied in with the whole Aegon-Fagon thing. I think that's not likely, personally. I think that it is much more likely that they are separate plots, separate ideas. So that is why I do not think that Septa Lemor is Ashara Dayne. I agree about the eyes. Maybe Tyrion wasn't looking at the eyes. Who knows? But it seems to me that those are different plots going on. I just want to give a quick shout out to LML. Hi LML, it's fantastic to see you out there in chat, saying Quaithe is Shira Seastar. Maybe I don't think we got time to get into that. I'm not even gonna try and answer that one. Thank you for that. Great to see you, LML, and we will definitely have LML back on this channel for the another live stream at some point soon. Got a couple of let's do sort of quick answers to these ones. So Gemma, Susan Dunkel, one of my patrons, says, do you think Dawn could be in Greywater Watch, or do you think Dawn went back to Starfall? We haven't heard from it, basically. Where is Dawn?
My understanding is, and this is my very quick answer, is that it is at Starfall. It's specifically explained that Ned took it back, and we've not heard any accounts of it being removed. It's unlikely that House Dayne would allow that to happen.
I agree, and I think that George R.R. Martin has confirmed that that's the case, that it is down there. Don't quote me on that, or indeed him on that. Please do go and check that one out. But yes, I agree. I think that Dawn is currently in Starfall. 26 Art Girl says, again, another Patreon question. Hi there. If Ashara did not die, as you proposed in your recent video, is there anywhere else that she could be besides with Howland Reed? What do you think? Where else might she be?
She might be on the Shy Maid, or she might be speaking to Dany using a glass candle. Who knows?
So we've got either Septa Lemor or Quaithe are your two other possibles. Yep,
pretty much.
Okay, I would not disagree that those are the other two possibles. For Quaithe, I think I'm going with Shira Seastar, at the risk of agreeing with LML. Hate LML. So, joke, mate. Sorry. And with Septa Lemor, I think I'm with this idea that she is actually Aegon's mother, Fagon's mother. So I think, yes, she is currently, she in this instance being Ashara Dayne, is currently up in Greywater Watch. Another quick question from Pegleg Pete, a patron, regarding her brother Arthur Dayne. We did an Arthur Dayne video a while ago. The whole Tower of Joy story may be a huge lie, and Arthur may be at the God's Eye with her and Howland. What do you think? Do you think that all three of them, Arthur, Howland, and Ashara, are at the God's Eye?
Now, this is my quick answer because I could talk about this one for quite some time. My quick answer is the reason why we think that Ashara Dayne is potentially not dead is because there was no body. The same applies to Arthur Dayne. No body was brought back to Starfall. There's no confirmed body for Arthur Dayne, so maybe.
Excellent. I would agree, but I think he's dead, because I think Ned was telling the truth when he said that only the two of them, him and Howland, walked away from the tower. I don't think he died in combat, but that is something for a video in about 3, maybe 4 weeks' time.
Well, didn't we confirm that in the last live stream? He died in a really lame way, didn't he? That's what we concluded.
I think that's what you quoted me as. Yeah, Arthur Dayne died in a really lame way. I think I'll stick with that. Let's go with that one until I come up with a better way of expressing it. I don't think he died in a heroic combat. Let's put it that way. Okay, let's guys, we are just going to start tying up now. Any last chance? I'm going to waffle for about a minute and give Gemma a chance to have a quick flick through to see if we got a last excellent question for us to be answering. I think I've covered all the super chats, but please do shout if I haven't. But guys, so what's coming up on my channel? I'm going to carry on with my series on what I think happened at the Tourney at Harrenhal, Robert's Rebellion, and the Tower of Joy. I'm going to do 2 or maybe 3 covering the period of the rebellion all the way through the alleged abduction of Lyanna, through what actually happened, breaking down the timeline so we can actually see what happened during the rebellion leading up to the Tower of Joy. Definitely going to be carrying on with my Traveler's Guide. We're going to be going to the Iron Islands next, so please keep an eye out tomorrow for the next edition of that. And then next week, I don't know who's going to be the guest here yet, but I'll be doing same time, same live stream. Really, we'll be doing probably another character study, because I'm quite enjoying these. Gemma, have you found an excellent question just for us to be ending on?
Yes, I have made a selection for our final question of the day, and it's from Fake Aria, who asks, why did the Danes name their younger son Ned?
Excellent. And the answer to that is?
They didn't. They called him Edric, which is not quite the same as Eddard, but yes, his nickname is Ned. His preference is Ned. My answer is, I don't know, but it's like a big sore thumb in this story, isn't it? And it's one of the reasons why it's just not adding up. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of the questions which is driving me on my series through this, is that trying to work out what on earth is it that could happen with Ned and House Dayne that could lead him to be in such an honored position. Now, my first supposition on this, and I think there are 2 that I will go public with, and the rest I shall leave for a video. The first is that Ned did not do what is rumored of him, which is he did not get her pregnant and then leave her to marry another woman. I don't think that happened. The second thing is that I do not think that Ned was responsible for the death of Arthur Dayne. When you get rid of those 2 things, you get the fact that he brought the sword back to Starfall. Now, he was nothing else bad happens, and he brought it back. That in and of itself was a good thing, because out of all of the houses, the Dawn was probably the most precious to House Dayne out of all of the houses and their swords. So there was that, but I think there is another layer that I'm partly teasing this. It's partly because I don't think I've fully understood it myself yet. I'm still digging through the detail, but I think there is another layer to this. I think he didn't do the bad things that he was alleged to do, and I think he did do a couple of good things that, as a result, they then named their child not after him, but they nicknamed their child after him. So that's my take. Gemma, you clearly ducked out of that first time. Did you want to have another go at this one?
I mean, I've spoken about this before. I'm pretty much with you. This is a step beyond not being annoyed. This is almost a reverence of Ned Stark, isn't it? And it's the launch pad for a lot of questions and speculation that surround all of House Dayne in general. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. But I'm gonna have to sign off in a minute, I'm afraid, guys. But it's been fantastic being on your channel again, Robert. I always enjoy coming on here. You guys in the chat have been superb.
Absolutely, I agree. And guys, we should not keep Gemma up past her bedtime. So I'm just going to give Gemma a quick chance just to let everybody know where on the interwebs we can find her.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Secrets of the Citadel, or 2wordy. That's TWO, as in the number 2wordy. I'm on Instagram at Secrets of the Citadel. I am at Citadel Secrets on Twitter, and I am Gemma Stark or Gemma Secrets on Facebook.
Excellent. And guys, I hope you know where to find me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the normal places. If you've not checked out my other channel, The Well Told Tale, please do go and check that one out. If you'd like to support this channel, get access to some other stuff, please do check out my Patreon page. That's all. I'd like to thank Gemma, who's been excellent as she always is. Guys, I will see you next time for
hang on. You've missed the super chat.
Guys, do this to me.
Can somebody copy and paste the question? Who was it from? I'm sorry, I'm just Mazamonte super chat. It's been lost in the ether of the chat. Is there any way you can repost?
Guys, so Mazamonte is one of my patrons as well. I'd feel really bad missing this.
Shocking.
I'm sorry, Gemma.
Absolutely shocking.
One.
We've been telling you for 5 minutes.
Oh. See, okay, guys, I have to apologize. First, Gemma, sorry, I'm going to keep you up for another 2 minutes. Secondly, the chat goes through so quickly, it's really easy to miss stuff. And what you don't see is, and I'm sure Gemma does exactly the same, while the other person's chatting, we're ferociously scrolling through, trying to spot all the things that we might have missed. If somebody could, at the bottom of the chat, cut and paste that one, and then everyone's saying can't find it.
Oh
no. Okay, guys, if it's not appeared in the next few seconds. Mazamonte said that R+L equals J. Okay, I'm gonna go with that.
I'm not sure she did.
You're not sure she did?
No.
Okay, Mary, I feel very bad. I will, if you put it on Patreon, then I will.
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
So if Ashara and Howland went this Leanna and go to hide and win. So did Ashara and Howland go to hide in Winterfell? Over to you. Very quick answer.
No. No,
okay,
I don't think so.
I don't know how quick that answer was.
In the crypts,
Mary,
like Bael the Bard. I understand the question now. In the crypts, like Bael the Bard. Still no, though.
Okay, so I think that the one thing I would say to this, Mary, is that we have to understand the distances involved here. This isn't just a little jaunt. So to get from King's Landing up to Winterfell, probably if you're going at a standard pace, not pushing things, it is 2-3 months. That's a long way. To get from Starfall all the way up is a lot more time to go there. So it is a long old march. I do not think that they went up there and were hiding up there for a long period. So I don't think that Ned took them after the Tower of Joy and took them up there and dropped them off. I don't think that they've been hiding there ever since. That's not the way that I see it. I I completely get the reference that is there to sort of the Bale the Bard and those things there, but I don't think that is what George R.R. Martin was trying to do. So apologies for missing the exact wording of your earlier super chat. If you want to put it on Patreon, then I'll give it a fuller answer over there. But guys, I'm feeling bad because I kept Gemma up much later than I said I was going to. Sorry, Gemma. So we're going to sign off here. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a great chat, and apologies if we missed not just Mary your question, but if we missed your question, then sorry about that. And thank you guys. I shall see you next week. Take care. It's been really good.
Bye.